Welcome back to the English Prep Podcast. It's great to be with you all again, ready to dive into another exciting topic.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to be here.
As always, we love hearing from our listeners. And one thing that comes up a lot, especially from our intermediate learners, is the challenge of, improving reading skills in English,
Yeah, I can definitely understand that.
especially with those big exams like TOEFL and IELTS, right, where time is just ticking away.
Definitely. It can be a lot of pressure.
So today, we thought, let's really unpack this. Let's give our listeners some seriously effective strategies to help them read faster, but not just faster, right? With more confidence, too, but without sacrificing accuracy, because that's key.
Right, absolutely. Speed without understanding, it doesn't really get you very far.
Exactly. So we'll explore everything from, skimming and scanning. We'll talk about vocabulary building, even tackling that voice in your head, the one that can sometimes slow us all down.
Oh yeah, that inner monologue.
So are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's get practical then. Why does reading speed even matter so much for English learners? Beyond those big exams, what are the real-world benefits?
Well, think about it this way. Imagine being able to just zip through research articles, really get the information you need quickly,
Right.
understanding news reports effortlessly, or even just enjoying a good English novel without feeling like you're stuck, trudging through it.
Oh, I can relate to that for sure.
It's really about feeling empowered to tackle any text that comes your way.
I love that. It's about that feeling of confidence, like you're in control, not just struggling to keep up. But I'll be honest, I've definitely tried to read faster before and ended up completely missing the point.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
So how do we make sure we're not just, skimming mindlessly, but actually understanding what we read? How do we balance speed with accuracy?
You've hit on a crucial point because accuracy is just as important as speed. It's not about becoming a speed reader who just races through words. It's about having targeted techniques. Think of it like visiting a museum, right?
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
You wouldn't just sprint through a museum, would you?
No way. There's so much to see.
Exactly. You'd want to take your time with the pieces that really interest you.
Spend some time with the masterpieces.
Yes. And it's the same with reading. Some parts will require more attention than others.
So it's more about knowing when to slow down and when to speed up, being strategic about it.
Exactly. And that's where those techniques we mentioned come in. So let's start with skimming and scanning. These are like your reading superpowers.
Superpowers, I like that.
Right. Essential tools in your reading toolkit.
Okay, but I'll admit, I sometimes get these two confused.
I think a lot of people do.
Can you remind me how they're different and when I might use each one?
Absolutely. Skimming is like getting that bird's eye view of the text. You're quickly glancing over it to grab the main idea, the key points.
So it's more about getting the gist, not necessarily absorbing every single detail.
Exactly. Think of it like checking the headlines in a newspaper.
Okay, that makes sense. You get a sense of what's happening without reading every single article.
Perfect analogy. Now, scanning is a bit different. It's more like when you're hunting for specific details, like if you're looking for a date in a history book.
Or a statistic in a research paper, or maybe a specific name in an article.
Exactly. It's like, imagine you're looking for your friend in a crowded room,
Oh, I can picture that.
You're not going to stop and chat with every single person.
Right, you're on a mission.
Exactly. You're going to scan those faces looking for that familiar one. Scanning text is similar. You're moving your eyes quickly, searching for that specific piece of information.
Makes perfect sense. So we've got skimming for the big picture and scanning for that targeted search. Awesome. But even if I'm good at these, I still get tripped up by words. I don't know, vocabulary feels like a constant hurdle,
I hear you. Vocabulary is so important. It's like the building blocks of reading. If you're constantly stopping to decipher words, it's definitely going to slow you down. But the good news is you can actively strengthen your vocabulary.
Okay, that's good to hear. Because I feel like I've been stuck at this intermediate level for a while now.
It's a common feeling, but it's not just about memorizing lists of words. You need to make those words meaningful.
So flashcards alone won't cut it.
They can be helpful, but you need to make those words stick, make them relevant to your life. Think of it like this. It's much easier to remember the names of your friends.
Of course. I know their stories. We have shared experiences.
Exactly, because you have a connection with them. It's the same with words.
So how do we create that kind of connection with new English words? How do we make them our friends?
First, focus on words that are relevant to your interests, to your goals. Are you passionate about technology? Then focus on tech vocabulary. Dreaming of traveling? Learn travel-related words.
Make it personal, something that matters to you. I like that.
Then, when you encounter a new word, don't just try to memorize the dictionary definition. Use it in a sentence, write it down a few times, even say it out loud.
So it's about engaging with the word in different ways.
Exactly. The more you use it, the more it becomes part of your active vocabulary, like those names of your friends.
And the less I'll have to reach for the dictionary every few minutes. It's great. So we've got skimming, scanning, and vocabulary building as our, what did you call them, our superpowers.
That's right. Your reading superpower.
I love it. But are there any other strategies to actually boost our reading speed without losing comprehension?
Absolutely. And one of my favorites is timed practice.
Timed practice. Okay, tell me more.
It's like a mini workout for your reading muscles.
I'm intrigued. So how does it work? Do I need, like, special equipment for this?
Nope. No fancy equipment needed. Just a timer and a text that you're interested in.
Okay, that sounds doable.
Choose a short article or a passage from a book. Set your timer for, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes. Read as much as you can in that time, then stop and just jot down the main points that you remember.
So it's like a little challenge to see how much I can absorb in a short burst.
Yeah.
And then I check back to see if I got it.
Exactly. And that's the key. After you've noted those points, you go back and check the text. Did you capture the key information? Were there any details you missed? This helps you practice reading quickly while still focusing on understanding. It's like a double whammy for improving your skills.
Wow, I can already see how that would be so helpful, especially for those timed exams we were talking about.
Exactly. It simulates that test environment and helps build those time management skills.
And it sounds kind of fun, too, like a little game.
They like
that. Okay, so we've got timed reading drills for speed. What else?
Let's talk about vocabulary journaling.
We talked about this a bit earlier, right? Just writing down new words.
Similar, but it's a bit more than that. It's more intentional. Think of it as a personalized dictionary that you create and curate yourself. Whenever you come across a word that sparks your interest or one that you just can't seem to remember.
Oh, I have so many of those.
Write it down in your journal. But don't just write the word. Add the definition, a sample sentence, maybe even a little drawing.
Make it visual. I like that.
Right. The key is to make it memorable.
So it's like my own personal treasure chest of words I want to master.
Exactly. And then you can review your journal periodically and quiz yourself.
I could even use it to practice with a friend.
Absolutely. And here's a bonus tip. Try incorporating those new words into your daily conversations or even your writing practice. The more you use them, the more natural they'll become.
It's all about making those words come alive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not just keeping them trapped in a notebook. Okay, we've got timed reading drills, vocabulary journaling. What other reading workouts do you have in store for us?
Let's move on to something that might sound a bit unusual, eye movement training.
Eye movement training. Okay, now I'm really curious. What exactly does that involve? Do I need special glasses for this?
No special equipment needed, just your own eyes and a text. The idea is to train your eyes to move more smoothly and efficiently across the page.
Okay, so how do we do that?
You can use a simple tool, like your finger or a pen, to guide your eyes along each line of text. Think of it like giving your eyes a little nudge in the right direction.
So I'm basically using a physical guide to train my eye movements. Does that really work?
It does. The key is to focus on reducing the time it takes for your eyes to move from one line to the next. You'll gradually start to notice that you're covering more text in a shorter amount of time without losing focus or comprehension.
That's amazing. It's like a workout for my eye muscles, getting them in shape for reading. Okay, this is great. So we've got time drills, vocabulary journaling, and now eye movement training. These are some serious reading tools.
Yeah.
But I know that even with the best techniques, it's easy to lose focus, especially if I'm not really into what I'm reading.
You're absolutely right. It happens to all of us.
So how do we make sure we're reading with a purpose? How do we stay engaged?
It's all about setting an intention. Before you even open a book or an article, ask yourself, what do I want to get out of this?
So it's like having a mission for my reading session.
Exactly. Are you looking for specific information? Trying to understand a complex concept? Having that clear objective in mind will help you stay focused.
So it's like setting a destination before I start my reading journey. That makes a lot of sense. It gives my reading a sense of direction.
Exactly. And it'll also help you choose the right techniques. Looking for specific details, you'll scan. Want the overall message? Skimming is your go-to.
This is all starting to come together. I feel like I have a whole toolbox full of reading strategies now.
That's great to hear.
But I'm also aware that, well, consistency is key, right? Like with any skill. how do we build a reading routine that we can actually stick to? Make it a habit.
You've hit the nail on the head again. Consistency is crucial. And the first step to building that solid routine is setting specific goals.
So instead of just saying, I want to read more, I need to be more specific.
Right.
Like how much, how often.
Exactly. Think about what you realistically want to achieve. Maybe it's reading one news article a day, or finishing a chapter in a novel each week.
Set those achievable goals, something I can actually stick to.
And then create a distraction-free environment. Find a quiet spot. Turn off those notifications.
Oh yes, the enemy of focus. Those pesky notifications.
Right. Create a space dedicated to reading. It could be a cozy corner in your home, a spot in a library, or even a park bench if the weather's nice.
I love that. It's about creating a ritual, a time and space just for reading.
Exactly. And here's another idea that can really help with motivation and engagement. Join a reading group.
Well, that's a great idea. I hadn't even thought of that. How would that help?
It's a fantastic way to stay motivated, connect with other English learners, and get different perspectives. You can discuss books, share thoughts.
It adds a social element to reading, makes it more fun.
Exactly. And don't limit yourself to one type of text. Read novels, news articles, blog posts, even those instruction manuals. Mix it up.
Variety is the spice of life, and of reading, too, it seems. Okay, this is fantastic. I'm already feeling more inspired and equipped to tackle my English reading goals.
That's wonderful to hear. Remember, it's all about finding what works for you.
And enjoying the process, right?
Absolutely. Reading should be a pleasure, not a chore.
I completely agree. I think one thing I'm still curious about, we've talked about a lot of techniques, but there's this thing, subvocalization, I think it's called.
Ah, yes. Subvocalization.
Yeah, that inner voice that kind of reads along with us, It feels like it's slowing me down, but I'm not even sure how to stop it. Any tips for that?
Yeah, that infamous inner narrator. A lot of people experience that. And for English learners, it can be even more pronounced as you're kind of processing the language.
It's like my brain wants to make sure it understands every single word.
Exactly. But the good news is you can absolutely train yourself to minimize it.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some strategies for, quieting down that voice and speeding things up?
Well, one technique is to really focus on reading in phrases rather than individual words.
Okay, so chunks of words instead of each one separately.
Right, because your eyes can actually take in several words at once, so try grouping words together as you read.
So instead of reading, word by word, the cat sat on the mat, it's more like, the cat sat on the mat.
Precisely. And to kind of help train your eyes to do this, you can use a visual pacer. It could be your finger, a pen, or even just an imaginary line that you follow across the page.
I can see how that would help keep my eyes moving forward, prevent them from lingering on each individual word.
Yes.
It's like giving my eyes a road map.
Exactly. And believe it or not, listening to instrumental music while you read can also help reduce subvocalization.
Really. Music helps me read faster.
It can. The music helps occupy that part of your brain that wants to sound out each word, allowing you to focus more on the visual input.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like giving my inner voice a little break while my eyes do the work. Okay, this is great. So many practical tips. We've been talking a lot about, traditional reading techniques. But what about technology?
Ah, yes, technology.
There are so many apps and tools out there now that claim to improve reading speed. Are they worth trying?
Well, technology can definitely be a fantastic ally in your reading journey. It really offers a whole new dimension of personalized learning.
I can see that.
Think about those speed reading apps, for example, that train your eyes to move faster across the screen.
I've seen those, yeah. They look pretty intense.
Some of them even flash words one at a time, which can be really helpful for breaking that subvocalization habit we were just talking about.
Okay, so there's some real science behind them. It's not just a gimmick.
Exactly. But like any tool, it's about using them thoughtfully and not relying on them solely. Because some people find that using these apps too much can lead to skimming rather than really understanding the material.
So it's all about balance, right?
Yeah.
Using technology to enhance those core skills we've been discussing.
Exactly.
What about, more basic tech tools? Can those be helpful too?
Oh, absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of the simple things. Browser extensions can adjust font size and spacing for better readability.
Right. Make the text more visually appealing.
And even something as basic as changing the background color on your e-reader can make a big difference in reducing eye strain.
It's all about creating that reading experience that feels comfortable and engaging, right?
Yeah.
And maybe even a little bit fun.
Exactly. And don't forget, technology is constantly evolving. There are always new tools and resources emerging.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities. Well, this has been such an insightful deep dive into the world of reading strategies. I feel like I have a whole new arsenal of tools to tackle those English texts with more confidence and speed.
That's fantastic to hear. Remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
And speaking of journeys, we've explored some awesome techniques for improving speed. But how do we know if we're actually making progress? How do we track those improvements and stay motivated?
You're right. Keeping track is so important. That's where the power of self-reflection comes in. Think of it like taking a step back to assess your own reading landscape.
Okay, I like that analogy. So it's not just about reading more, it's about reading smarter and being mindful of our progress.
Absolutely. And one simple but effective way to do this is by keeping a reading journal. We talked about vocabulary journaling earlier, and this can go hand in hand with that.
So this journal becomes a record of not just new words, but also our overall reading progress.
Exactly. You can note down the date, the text you read, how long it took you, any new vocabulary you learned, the techniques you used, and any challenges you encountered. It's like a personalized roadmap of your reading journey.
Now, looking back at that roadmap, I bet it can be incredibly motivating to see how far you've come.
Right. Absolutely. And it's also a fantastic tool for identifying patterns and areas for improvement. Are there certain types of texts you consistently struggle with? Are you still relying too heavily on your inner voice? Your reading journal can reveal these insights.
It's like having a personal reading coach in a notebook. I love it.
Yeah.
But even with a journal, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day practice and forget to celebrate those little wins along the way. You know, those moments where you realize, hey, I'm actually getting better at this.
You're so right. Celebrating your achievements is crucial for staying motivated and building confidence. So make sure to acknowledge those milestones, no matter how small they may seem.
I think that's such an important reminder for all of us in any area of learning. We can be so hard on ourselves sometimes.
It's true. We often focus on what we haven't achieved yet rather than appreciating how far we've come. So take a moment to celebrate those wins, big or small. Maybe you were able to read a news article in half the time it used to take you, or you successfully used skimming to quickly grasp the main idea of a complex report. Those are all victories worth celebrating.
Absolutely. Those little celebrations can really make a big difference in how we feel about our progress. You know, it's like giving ourselves a high five for a job well done. Okay, this is all great. So we've got our journal, we're tracking our progress, we're celebrating our wins. But how do we know if we're really on the right track? What if we're still making the same mistakes or struggling with certain skills?
That's where regular review comes in. Set aside some time each week or each month to revisit some of your past readings. Compare your speed and accuracy over time. Are you noticing any improvements? Are there specific areas where you're still struggling? This kind of self-assessment can be incredibly valuable.
It's like checking in with your reading self and seeing how much you've grown. I love that.
Precisely. And this kind of self-assessment can be incredibly empowering. It helps you take ownership of your learning journey. Remember, becoming a better reader is an ongoing process. There's always room for improvement.
So true. It's not about reaching some imaginary finish line. It's about enjoying the journey and embracing the process of continuous learning. This has been such an inspiring and practical deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm excited to put all of these tips into action.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of English learners out there, all striving to improve their reading skills. We're all in this together.
That's the beauty of the English Prep Podcast community, right? We're all here to support each other, learn from each other, and celebrate our successes together.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the biggest takeaways for me from all of this is that improving reading skills, it's not just about speed, right?
No, absolutely not.
It's about understanding and engagement and finding those aha moments that make you a more confident reader overall.
You've summarized it perfectly. And the beauty is, all of these techniques we've talked about, they all kind of work together, right?
Like pieces of the puzzle.
Skimming and scanning help you navigate those texts more efficiently.
Right.
Vocabulary building unlocks that deeper meaning. And then those timed drills, eye movement exercises, it all contributes to building that reading stamina and confidence we were talking about.
Yeah, it's like a holistic approach to reading, not just one magic trick.
Exactly. It's about building a solid foundation of skills.
And it's so reassuring to know that even subvocalization, that inner voice that feels impossible to silence, can be tamed with practice.
Yes, absolutely. It takes time and effort, but it's definitely possible. Remember, it's a journey, not a race, right?
Right.
The most important thing is finding what works best for you and your individual learning style.
Speaking of individual learning, I love how we talked about personalizing the experience with technology too. Whether it's a fancy app or just adjusting the settings on your e-reader, there are so many ways to make it your own.
Absolutely. And don't forget about those low-tech tools as well.
Oh, yeah, those are important too.
Creating a cozy reading nook, finding a quiet spot in the library, maybe listening to some calming music to block out distractions. It's all about setting yourself up for success.
I think that's such a key point, creating that environment that works for you. And of course, the reading journal, such a great way to keep track of progress and celebrate those small wins.
Huge fan of journaling. It's a powerful tool for self-reflection and growth, not just for reading, for all aspects of language learning.
So true. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of reading strategies, what's that one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I think I'd encourage everyone to pick up an English text this week, whatever it may be, and just approach it with a fresh perspective. Maybe it's that news article you've been meaning to read, or a chapter in that English novel that's been sitting on your shelf.
Or even just an email from a colleague or a post on social media.
Exactly. Choose something that interests you and apply some of the techniques we've talked about. See what happens. I bet you'll be surprised by how much more you enjoy the experience and how much more you understand.
What a great challenge. I love that. It's all about putting this knowledge into action. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been such a valuable conversation.
It's been my pleasure. Always happy to talk about reading.
And to all our listeners out there, remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together. Keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep that passion for English alive. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of English learning. Until then, happy reading, everyone.